So now that we have made a login and a sign up work with code, now we're going to create an HTML template that allows the user to actually sign in and log in. But creating a template like that could be a bit of work. And as programmers, we like to avoid doing work. So we're going to go back to Bootstrap and we're going to type in Bootstrap Modal. Okay, so what this modal is it pops up a window similar to an alert, but it looks good. So we're just going to copy this modal code. Or actually, maybe we should go to yeah, this demo is a good idea because it already works. So we're going to have a modal code. And for now, we're just going to put it at the bottom of our body. And then we're going to copy and paste this button. And we will just put it at the right underneath the nav bar. So launch demo modal is what we're looking for. So if we refresh our page, we'll see this launch demo modal, and if we click it, it launches the modal. So as you can see, we have just created a bunch of functionality by copying and pasting code from Bootstrap. So a lot of people, when they get into programming, think that that's almost cheating, but you have to cheat, because if I were to create this, like, who knows how long that would take me, and then all of a sudden I wouldn't have time to even create this tutorial. So always use resources like without feeling guilty about it, because professional programmers definitely do that. So now we are going to have a button in the nav bar instead called login. But in order to do that, it's really important to note how this button is actually connected to our modal. So if we see this data toggle equals modal and then data target equals example modal, remember that IDs use a pound sign. So if you see a pound sign, it's probably related to an ID. So if we go down, we'll notice this has the ID of example modal. So we could change this, for example, instead of being example modal, to be login modal. And then if we refresh our page, it will no longer work because there's no longer an example modal that the button is looking for. But if we change this to be login modal, and then we refresh the page, it will once again work. So now we're going to take this code and we're actually going to put it in our nav bar. And I'm just going to put it right underneath this nav bar part. And then we're going to take the modal and we're going to bring it all the way down and just put it underneath the nav. And then if we refresh our page, it will be in our nav bar. Now all we need to do is change this so it says login. And now we have a button that says login. Now of course we can move this around however we want. I'm actually going to make it so that I'm going to click this right here, toggle device toolbar, and then set it to be responsive, because I want the nav bar to be open so that we can see it. So as you can see, it works fine until you go into a smaller width, and then it still displays it, whereas it should be displaying it in this menu. But all we need to do is actually find the menu, which is right here under this list. And we're just going to put it at the top of the list, right above it. And if we refresh our page, we have to log in there, because we want to make our site mobile friendly too. Right now it doesn't look very good, but that's fine. So we're just going to increase the width here so that it expands out. Okay, so now if we click this login button, it will bring up our login modal. Okay, so now we're going to start styling our modal. So if we go back to our modal, scroll down, you're going to see this modal body. We're just going to change that to be modal content container. And then we're going to refresh the page and make sure that that doesn't do anything really bad. Okay, it sort of does. So modal body is an actual bootstrap class. So we're going to leave it as is. And then we're going to type in our own class. So modal content container. Awesome. Next, we're going to add our input type equals text. We're also going to give it an ID of user email. And we're going to have a placeholder, just email. Then we're going to have another input ID equals user password. And we're going to set type equal to password. We're going to set placeholder equal to password. And then we're going to close our input tag. Now we want to make sure we give it a class of form-control. And this is a bootstrap class that will make our inputs look nicer without us having to do anything. So as you can see, they're looking pretty good. So if we do margin bottom, like 10 pixels, awesome, it's looking even better. So we are going to give them both another class that we choose called modal input. That way we can edit both of them at the same time. Modal input. And then if we go to navbar.css, oh, we haven't actually created one. Okay, so we're going to right click here and click new file, type navbar.css, and we will do our modal input. And we will say margin bottom 10 pixels. Now remember, our CSS isn't linked to our HTML. So at the very top here, we're going to type link rel equals style sheet, href equals navbar.css, and then ideally that works. Okay, so something is wrong. We need to give it an exact path from the very beginning of our file structure. So we're going to type in slash components slash navbar.css. And if we refresh our page, click login again, you'll notice we have email and password. So we're going to take this save changes button and we're going to change it so that it says login. Okay. And now we need to have a navbar.js. And we're going to have a function called submit modal. And then when we click login, it's going to call submit modal. And you might be wondering, well, if we already have our username and password, why don't we just call the Firestore function to log in right from our navbar.html? And the reason why is because there's other things we need to do before we even touch Firestore. We need to make sure they actually entered in an email, and we need to make sure they entered in a password and all that stuff. So we're just going to do a little bit of verification. So we're going to get the ID of user email and user password. So we're going to say var email equals user-email.val. And we're going to say var password is the same thing, but with password. My typing is awful. Okay, and then we aren't going to do any testing yet. We're actually just going to test with Firebase. So we're just going to call the function right away, which is login. So login. And now if we refresh our page and we try it, we're calling it brilliantlabs.ca, password. If we click login, what happens? Submit modal is not defined. Okay, so I lowercase the s here, I believe is probably what happened. Oh wait, oh, I didn't actually include my JavaScript file. So we need to type in script source equals slash components slash navbar slash navbar.js. And let's try and refresh it again. Okay, so we used the text box and then we sent login information to Firestore and they returned our user data. So we have our display name of Colin. So this is how we would now access our display name. Is now that we've logged in, if we create a new post, we would say post.displayname equals user.displayname.